I'm Justin Snyder.
And I'm Stephanie Greenwood-Snyder.
We're just an average, everyday couple.
But over the years, we've seen the incredible importance of building community together.
We'll be talking with friends and experts about their stories and experiences to help us learn and grow.
We don't want to just survive through life.
We want to intentionally thrive.
This is The Intentional Thriver. Welcome to The Intentional Thriver, the podcast where we ask the question, are you just surviving or are you thriving?
Ooh, what a good question, Stephanie.
Yes. Today we have a very special guest with us. Garrett, all the way from, I know you're not in Washington, D.C., but we'll call it that.
Close enough.
Yeah.
Close enough.
It's around the corner. Thank you, Garrett, for being on our podcast. Welcome. How are you?
Thank you. Surviving.
Correct.
Welcome to Washington, D.C.
You said it was, 15 degrees there right now?
Shoot.
Yes, it is. We are in the teens right now. Lots of snow on the ground. So I don't know what to do with myself.
Yeah.
Yeah,
boy.
exactly. We had
We're there with you.
a pipe freeze in our heater today.
Yeah.
Which is a first for us.
What even is that?
I was just working
Ice
away.
belongs in the freezer.
And Justin's
that's,
like,
that's
you.
the extent of it.
Yeah. This is
Wait, but you're married to a northerner though, so.
And that makes me feel even worse. Thank you for rubbing that in, because I have been so embarrassed.
Her blood has been so thin.
Oh my word, my family all have like a foot of snow right now and they're all playing in it, and I am like, kids, do not leave the house.
So it's cold there. It's cold here.
Yeah.
We're ready for it to warm up.
Yeah. Why did we move from Florida? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I ask myself that all the time.
Mhm.
Well,
Mhm.
that's a whole nother podcast in and of itself.
Isn't it though?
Yeah.
One day.
So,
Anywho, but no, we always like to start off the
Mhm.
show by saying something we appreciate and admire about our guest. Two things. One is, and I think is so perfect to have Garrett on this podcast, is two things. Number one, Garrett is one of the most hardworking people
Mhm.
I have ever met in my life. I respect your work ethic tremendously. You have worked in quite a few different industries and fields and have always like brought such a spirit of excellence and hard work.
Mhm.
And I've just always respected and admired that about you. And part two of that is Garrett is very authentic and genuine at connecting with people. And that's a really, really great skill set to have.
Yeah.
It's one that I have tried to grow in.
You have.
You know, we ask,
Since meeting Garrett.
what would Garrett do? That's the question. And then we just do the opposite of that.
My word.
Thank you. That is the right statement.
That's the correct answer.
How hard would you like your life to be?
No, but we love you. We appreciate you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. We've known Garrett for a couple of years.
Yeah.
We've known him a couple of years now.
Since before we were married. Long time
Yes.
ago.
Wow,
That
that's
is true.
true.
That's crazy to think
We're
about.
hitting-
I don't think about it like that.
Our 10-year anniversary is this
We already
summer.
feel old enough, Stephanie.
So,
Come on.
I know. We were talking about how old we are.
But to like kick us off, can you, and we could spend the whole hour talking about this one question, but
Sure.
give us a general overview of
High
this
level.
one. But
I like how you've prefaced this as like
Oh, yeah.
general overview, and then Stephanie says high level because
goodness.
this is
But yeah, who is Garrett Henry Hinton
No,
or Henry
that is-
Garrett Hinton, depending on
that well is very deep.
So
Not with interesting things. Just
Sure, of
there's a
course.
lot.
It's-
There's
it's
a lot
just
of
deep.
yeah. So we've hit on this a little bit, and I've had to come to terms with this, and honestly, I really have in this job that I'm currently in right now. So maybe 2 years ago, I really came to terms with this specifically because I was feeling very down about a lot of things, even though there was really nothing to be down about. But to your question about like who am I, or like what my background is, it's all over the place. And so I hope that by the end of this, somebody who has a shared feeling of their life being all over the place will have a little bit of encouragement, because I've been a paramedic. I wanted to go to police academy. There was a time where I wanted to be a pilot. I mean, and I'm talking about like recent history. This wasn't like, oh, I was 12
right.
and I wanted to be these things. And it's
Yep.
like, oh, that's great that you want to do that. going to school and not knowing what you wanted to do. Like, I mean, and then like recent history, like I've got more into the travel industry and the attraction side of the travel industry, which is a whole other career field that has nothing to do with so many things that I've done previously.
Sure.
Started a couple of businesses, one with you, and that one had literally nothing to do with anything that I had done previously in life.
Right.
And somebody who was looking at my resume would be like, you are good at a few things and you are certainly great at nothing. And that's just, I mean, look, that's like the work world today. Like that's the typical work world where somebody will look at a resume and judge that person by, a book by its cover. Yeah. I mean, that is my life in a nutshell. I mean, you could look at my resume and look at my background and it is all over the place, all over the place. And if you don't have the right mindset, and by the way, I want to preface like this entire podcast because you probably have people who listen to this who don't have an undergirding of faith whatsoever, as where my perspective on literally everything you're going to ask me is going to come from a faith lens. Every single thing. Because if you don't have the right perspective, it's very easy to look maybe back on your life and feel like not only is it meaningless, there's nothing ahead of you either.
Let's talk about dream jobs for a minute. No, I'm just kidding.
Which is a funny term. I think that's such an interesting term because, like, depending on your perspective on things, it can actually be two very contradictory ideas of like dream, which is like, this is what I want, this is what I'm passionate about, all these things, and then like job, which could be like, oh, this is how I make money and live. So it's like,
can be.
Is there a thing where like, I don't know, like what does that term dream job even mean? Does that even exist?
I hate it. I hate it for my own personal experience. I hate that term because number one, we often don't know what we want and what is best for us. Like that is absolutely a human trait. Those two things. We don't know what we want. We do not know what's best for us. And how do I know that? Well, go get the thing that you want and then are you happier because you have it? No, generally you're not. Like, again, I know all of these statements are like so broad brush and they're very easily picked apart by, individuals that can break that data point or something. But yeah, like for me in my life, dream job doesn't exist. And remember, I prefaced everything with the faith element. And so here's what I would say. Is God sovereign? If you answer yes, well, then everything happens for a reason. Every single thing. There is not one thing, there's not one breath that happens that is going to take the Lord by surprise. He already knew it before it happened. All of those things are working in accordance to his sovereignty, not yours. Now, if you think that you've missed an opportunity or you are in the wrong place and you need to be this other place or something like that, again, I just keep stressing like that's something where you're trying to wrestle some sort of sovereignty, some sort of control back from the ordainer of the universe. And it's something that I've wrestled with for a long time. And as it relates to a job, I'm in the place that I'm in right now because this is literally where I'm supposed to be. And that's not like I've got a feeling in my spirit and this is where I'm supposed to be right now. It's like, no, literally, this is where I'm supposed to be right now. Know how I know that? Because this is where I am.
Amazing.
And that is the simplest way to explain it without having literally just one full podcast on the sovereignty of God.
Oh man.
But I feel like oftentimes when you ask people that, number one, I think we're such a biblically illiterate culture that when you talk about like the sovereignty of God and what that actually means, people will agree with you that God is sovereign. So if I ask the question to 100 Christians, 100 of them will raise their hands. And then you start to dive into what the sovereignty of God means, and suddenly the hands start to go down. Because we've lost we don't know the meaning, we've lost the context of it. And frankly, sometimes we don't like the outcome of what that means for our lives. And so we're that culture that we don't like that. We're just not going to participate in that. I'm going to put that side of it over here, and I'm not going to touch that. And I'm just going to come over here and I'm going to manifest my destiny and like do this other thing. There's a lot of hurt and heartache that comes from that. I've done a lot of that in my past where I've put those things off to the side, and a lot of hurt and a lot of heartache came from it. But I think what we'll talk about later shows the full extent of God's grace and mercy and the full extent of his sovereignty as it pertains to my own personal heart and my own personal feeling. That's a very humbling thing to be given that gift to realize. Like, even though I have made these autonomous decisions that are frankly maybe not the best for me, the way that the Lord has orchestrated those things together to put me in the place that I am right now is humbling.
Yeah.
Like, it's amazing how all of the puzzle pieces fit together exactly the way they're supposed to fit.
Yeah.
There's no like jamming the puzzle piece in that doesn't, there's no square peg in the round hole. Like everything fits exactly the way it's supposed to fit. And it wouldn't have fit together that way if I hadn't have had all those previous experiences. It would be impossible for that to fit like that.
I know, like, again, I'm speaking for myself personally, how difficult of a tightrope that can be of, like, you know, wait for the thing that God has in store for me.
Let go and let God, right?
Yeah, right. I mean, I'm reminded, like, what did Jesus say? He gave the example of, like, the talents, and he gave the different levels to different people. And it wasn't like, hey, here's your talent, just keep it, hang on to it, whatever it may be. It was like they proactively went out, they invested, they, you know, each at different levels, each doing different things. But the ones he commended were the ones who took initiative, who took action, who stepped out.
You're exactly right. And I think that everyone has a specific station in life, and that station in life often changes all the time. You know, I think now more than ever it changes, and I don't know, it would be a little bit to unpack the reasons why, because I could, you know, you can think back, you know, a generation or two ago where, you know, maybe your grandfather had a job when he turned 20, and then he stayed in that job until he was 70.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Got his pension and retired, and, you know, whatever else. And now we don't really live in that culture. And so there's some adaptability there. But, you know, the thing that I think about is, you know, Paul talks about, you know, the neck is going to be the neck, and the head is going to be the head, and the hands are going to be the hands, and the feet are going to be the feet. And the sooner you realize that, the sooner you realize you're not going to be a Major League Baseball player, the better off you're going to be. The better off that, the sooner that dream that you have that's slowly becoming a nightmare, like, goes away.
Well, there go my dreams of playing Major League Baseball.
Oh my.
Right. So there's a self-realization there that, yes, some people are meant to be the head.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you're not. We need to realize that there are specific stations and roles in life, and sometimes they last seasons, sometimes they last your entire life. Right. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think we belittle that so much because of culture, because we're like, we have this like oppression by culture. You know, I had a really good discussion with a friend a few months ago about social media and the impacts of it. You know, news travels so fast now as part of the social media culture. And you could say that with email and the telephone and things like that, but it certainly would not be as widespread. And frankly, even recent culture, because it wasn't until recently that you could doom scroll on your phone and you have an algorithm throwing things at you.
Yeah.
It isn't just you were following just your friends or the things you wanted to see, right? Remember, that's how it started. Now it's like you are consistently bombarded by people who look successful or, you know, have some sort of mantra that they're putting out there. And that's just one other layer of culture that you're having to deal with. And it's the human nature of, I want to be that guy. Like, why can't I do that thing? Or frankly, it could even distract you so much to where you quit what you're doing and you go chase that thing. And oftentimes that is not where you are supposed to be. And, you know, that's me of old talking about this a few minutes ago, where I'm taking these things and putting them to the side. And now I'm out here like doing these things that I feel like are best for me. And again, it's the grace and the mercy of God to that I was brought back from those decisions, and he knitted these things together in a way that is going to be fruitful. But the other side of it is, you mentioned the work ethic. We have a duty to be working unto the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
And so regardless of the position that you're in, I work at Museum of the Bible now in Washington, D.C.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I told my boss, who is our CEO now, when I was doing the interview, I just said, hey, look, I want you to know where I'm at currently, and how I view my life. And if you like this, if this is the thing that you feel like would be a good fit, then I'm your guy. There won't be another person out there. Like I am the person for this. And what I said is that I don't report to you. Like at the end of my life, I'm going to give an account of my life, and it won't be to you. And so if I'm doing my work as I'm doing it unto the Lord, then I'm going to overshoot any expectation you would ever have of me anyway.
Yeah.
So whatever it is you want me to do or produce or like whatever, I'm going to surpass that by a mile.
Wow.
Because I'm not doing it for you or for myself or for my family or for anything. I'm doing it because one day I will give an account for that. Regardless of whether you are the janitor or the garbage person or a mid-level manager at Chick-fil-A or whatever, or the CEO of $1 billion corporation.
Yeah.
That's a mantle that you've been given to steward, and you better steward it well. Like you will give an account. And so, yes, we should be striving for excellence in every single thing that we do, everything. And it is work. Like, I think that's the other thing that we have in culture now. You referenced like laziness and things like that. And I don't know that you referenced it in this way, but we like, I went to a show at Sight and Sound Theaters in Pennsylvania, in Lancaster. And we went into a restaurant afterwards. It was run by an Amish family. And I had this realization, and so many people will think of this comment and just like, again, blow it out of the water for what I'm about to say. But it was a true family working there. And there was a girl working there who was probably 8 or 9 years old, working harder and smarter than I see most adults work. Like the work ethic of this little girl was unbelievable. Smile on her face, like making sure like the placemats were completely straight, like making sure that the table was turned over properly and the silverware was set. Like the level of attention and detail that she gave to something was something that you would expect like out of a really high performing adult at a job.
Wow.
And she's just cleaning tables. Like she's not the manager. She's not running the cash register. She's not like doing the books. She's not, like she has a job that most people would look at and be like, that's a menial job or whatever, but it matters. It sets the tone for so many things. So anyway, yes, long story long, the work ethic piece and why you have the work ethic is super important to me specifically.
Okay. Yeah, that's really good. Oh, this is a good one. So let's talk about transitions. Let's talk about changing jobs. I mean, you are talking about being faithful. You're talking about, staying in the place that you feel God has called you.
Being a good steward.
Yeah.
All those things.
But changes do happen. I just changed jobs for the first time in 7 years. It was really like my first time in my life where my job didn't end because school ended or my contract ended or something like that. It was like I ended it, and that was really hard. Really hard. And I told my boss even like, I've never transitioned in my life because I was homeschooled. I had the same classroom my whole life. Everything came to an end. But I think I ended that well. And we actually are going to have my boss on this podcast, like my old boss. Like, so I think that's really special. But things do come to an end. Transitions do happen. Changes happen. What are things that people should take in consideration when they're deciding on a change?
That really depends, and that's a terrible answer for something like this.
No, I think it's a great answer.
Scenario to scenario, there isn't a broad thing. But what I have learned though is that again, I'm going to keep going back to this drama, and I hope this isn't super boring material, but
Okay.
through the lens of faith, I just have to hold every scenario that I have very loosely.
Mm.
It's like the the tighter you squeeze it, the faster it slips through your hand kind of thing. And oftentimes, like, you're talking about you deciding to make the transition, which is great, right? Oftentimes you don't get a choice in it.
That's
True.
true.
Sometimes they come in and they just say, you're fired.
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah.
hey, we're downsizing. We have to let you go.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
I worked. So, I'm going to go back on something I said. I worked my job before Museum of the Bible was the thing. It was not the dream job, but it was a great job.
Yeah.
I felt like it was borderline stealing because I loved it so much.
Wow.
And people were paying me for it. And I was like, I better not talk about this too loudly because like I need to make this sound like it's painful so people think it's work.
Gotcha.
Right. Like, so I was working for a branch of the Irish government in tourism. And there was a lot of pressure in that job. I was responsible for the largest portfolio in the company. It was a 180 million euro company, and my portfolio made up well over half of that. So a lot of pressure.
Wow.
But I was traveling, 150 days out of the year overseas, like staying in nice hotels, eating nice meals, like, and I was the product guy. So I was the guy that people were like trying to wine and dine to get the business. And I was getting paid for that.
Nice.
I was like, this can't be real, right? Like this cannot be a thing that people actually get paid for. But it was great. And I not only did I learn a whole bunch, I mainly learned like the thing that I was pretty good at. I felt like I was like decent at a lot of different things, but it felt like I had started to find a niche that, if I hadn't had that job and I hadn't had the boss that I had at that job, I wouldn't be qualified to do what I do now.
Wow.
Period. The end. But it was one of those moments where it was like, transition is happening to me. And now what? Like, I don't know what I'm going to do at all. Like the thing that I thought I was going to do, COVID has completely killed. There are 0 travel jobs right now. Big fat goose egg, right? And you don't know how long that's going to last. And so now I'm thinking, so here is yet another thing on my resume that is now going to change. Like I've gotten into this and the Lord is like, nope, we're taking you out of there.
Seriously.
And it wasn't but a couple months after that. I mean, I'm talking 30 or 40 days after that. Cause I had texted an old boss and I was like, hey, I don't want you to see it on LinkedIn. Like I got let go today and I'm looking for a job. And his next text back to me was, how do you feel about moving to Washington, D.C.? And my next text back to him was, over my dead body.
Of course.
So here's my dead body.
And technically, you don't live in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
So
Well, technically, you're right.
You
That's
got
exactly
the last laugh.
Yes, that is exactly right. But it's so funny because, at the time, they had been looking for this position the museum had for over 8 months.
Wow.
They had not found the right person. And the rest is history. But
seriously.
Yeah, it was a transition that had happened to me. And sometimes, that stuff happens. It doesn't seem fair. It doesn't seem just. It doesn't seem. And so I have had to learn in the good situations, in the bad, to hold these things very loosely. And it isn't just about your job. It's about all kinds of things in life. I hold very, very loosely. It does help me be sort of more of an even keel than maybe I'm prone to being. I feel like there's a little bit of an Irish, like fiery streak in me sometimes, mixed with a sailor. But right. But that in particular has helped me be the cooler head in times where it is very stressful or very tense, or it just seems very unjust and very unfair. And you just want to like cry and scream about it and kick around like a toddler.
Yeah.
Perspective matters in transitions, whether you're picking them or not.
Yeah.
It's controlling the controllables. And
Yeah.
again, if you're looking at it from an angle of faith, which there's no other way that I can look at it. That was for a reason. And now I knew it at the time. I'm like, this is for a reason. This is happening. Like, there's nothing you can do about it. And now I look back at it and I go, that really was for a reason. Like, it wasn't just a mantra I was stating to get myself through a difficult scenario.
Right.
So
for someone who picks a certain career field to study in college, and they spend time and energy and money and all these things, and then they don't end up, like necessarily working in that exact field.
Yep.
Man, is that wasted time? Is that wasted money? Is that like that part of my life is now flushed away because, what I went there to study and do, I'm not doing that anymore. I don't know what you kind of talked about this earlier, but I want to address that because I feel like some people really struggle with that, especially, teens as they're getting older, even parents of teens of like, I want my kid to make the right decision so they don't mess up their lives, which I think is a very valid place to come from.
A lot of pressure,
but that's a lot of pressure,
Yeah.
And so I don't know. What are your thoughts on something like that?
If you would have asked me that question 10 or 15 years ago, I would have a very different answer. And I try not to be the person that gets skewed by headlines. I'm really a context person. So like my strength finders, like I'm a context person first, and an activator second. So I think that fits my personality profile to a T. My take on this, I don't think it's super controversial, but maybe it is. I don't know. They're my opinions, so you get what you get.
Don't worry, Garrett. I'll be offended. No matter what the
Right.
answer is, I will be outraged.
Excellent.
If it's unpopular, just fix it in post, Justin.
Yeah, of course. I am
great.
not of this opinion.
Yes. So I think at different stages in life, there is encouragement for everyone. I want to put that out there first. So if you're not in college yet, I think that I would have some encouragement for you. If you were in college, I think I would have some encouragement for you. And if you're out of college, I think I would have some encouragement for you as well. So I think there is
All the
some
things.
nuance for each stage that you're in.
Yeah.
And the answer is no, I do not think that college is necessary unless you are going to be a doctor. You are going to be a rocket scientist. You're going to be like all of these skilled things that you're just not gonna, unfortunately, that is not the way the world works. And also at the same time, like I'm probably going to want to fly on a rocket that was built by a guy who knows how to build a rocket.
Yeah.
Like
Probably.
I'm going to go to the surgeon who has had like the best schooling and has had the most successful surgery track record.
Yeah.
That's just kind of the way it is. So I feel like there are very specific fields where you're going to want somebody who has had legit schooling. As I'm saying all of this stuff, I feel a certain way about college recently. And so I'm saying these words and in the back of my mind, I'm like, ugh, like I have this like gross feeling because I feel like college has been really just tainted recently in all kinds of ways. And so for a very general population, I do not feel like college is necessary. Now, that said, I hire very differently than a lot of people still hire currently.
Yeah.
I do believe that you have seen a massive shift in culture. And I think that this is a good thing. I think this is a good adaptation where people are realizing that college isn't everything anymore like it used to be. And so we're starting to catch up with that, which is good because that means a lot of people who have the work ethic, who have all the things that you want in a new hire or like a senior manager or whatever, like their personality profile, they're getting hired. And maybe they wouldn't have gotten hired again 10 years ago if they didn't have the college degree. So again, like it does depend. But like if I'm talking about it in my personal experience, so like in a previous job, I was responsible for hiring people, and in this job, um, my team has not that I've hired all of them, but my team has got over 150 people on it,
Mm.
a bunch of direct reports that I've hired at various levels, from directorship to senior manager to manager, all the way down to coordinator.
Mm.
And I am not looking for a college degree.
Wow.
Period. The end. Doesn't matter to me. Now, I'm also not in the curatorial department at the museum either. So,
Sure.
I don't have to worry about whether this person is trained on how to care for a 1,000-year-old manuscript,
Yeah.
right? Probably going to need some training for that,
Mhm.
because that could be a very costly mistake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like on the marketing side, the promotion side, the tech side, the operations side, the events side of things, the sales side, like all of that stuff, which that again, it makes up the majority of our operation. I am not scrolling to the end of their resume to see where they went to school or what they got their degree in.
Mhm.
I'm just not. Like I'm generally they're recommendations that are coming in, and if they're not recommendations, I mean they're going to get an interview generally, and they'll pass a screening thing or something like that, and then if the people that are doing the hiring, they understand what I'm looking for and what I'm trying to hire or who I'm trying to hire. And so that's what they're looking for. And eventually that'll percolate up to me for a final interview, depending on what the position is. And again, I'm not asking them what their SAT score was or what the GPA was or anything like that. I'm not looking for anything. And these are people who some of them are making great money.
Yeah.
Like they are making a fantastic living and don't have a college degree.
Wow.
And I'm not saying like the people with a degree versus not a degree are better workers. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying, like, if you were to put these individuals in front of you and you were to say, hey, which one has a college degree? You're not going to be able to pick it out.
Wow.
Like you wouldn't know. So yeah, it definitely depends. And so like the encouragement would be, if you're out of college, and you feel like, oh man, like I've got this degree and it feels worthless, or I feel like I wasted money or whatever. No, you didn't. Number one, because again, I feel like there are things that either your degree or your personality profile can adapt to in the working world. And again, I'm trying not to lead everything back to this faith thing, but like that is typically where I go with these things. And the one thing that I do know for a fact is that your life is not purposeless. Period. You can't convince me otherwise. So there is a space for you. And who knows what that is? I mean, that's back to like the culture telling you have to be a millionaire or you have to be super popular, or like you have to get over that. Like that may not be you may not be the head, right?
Yeah.
You may be the ankle. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
And again, the sooner you realize where you're supposed to be fitting in, the happier, more joyous, like individual you're going to be. When you're not looking sideways at other people who are the head and you're like, oh gosh, I wish I was that person. Like, why can't, and it has nothing to do with like not bettering yourself or, oh, well, I'm just going to quit learning now because, I'm the knee. And so, I've reached my peak. I don't need to study anymore. I don't need to better myself anymore or anything like that.
Yeah.
So, and if you're in college and you're feeling like it's a waste of time, you need to do an assessment. Like, I am not above somebody. I am not above cutting your losses, right? You need to take a real account of things. But if you like, look, I have a very general business degree, very general. The amount of times that I reflect on that business degree in my life for my job are zero.
Okay.
None. Like I don't ever reflect back on like my accounting class or whatever or my like Excel class or something. And I'm like, oh, like, let me use that principle. Now that could be just me being a terrible student. So, if you're in, like, here's the thing, if you're in school, you better make the most of it.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that is up to you. Like you
Right.
need, that's another thing where it's like, hey, work unto the Lord.
Yeah.
Like you need to be working your butt off
Mhm.
and squeezing the most
Yeah.
out of that thing that hopefully you are not paying a ton of money for,
Hopefully.
or using somebody else's money to pay for it.
Yeah.
Mm.
So, but I'm like, if Emily were here, this is where she would really be of super value.
Mm.
So I'll give you like the high level of her collegiate career.
Please.
She was a highly trained, highly professional dancer, ballet and jazz and all of those things.
Very talented dancer.
Extremely. Well, actually, not very talented at all.
Oh, okay. Yep.
So opposite of talented, the hardest worker that I know.
Yes.
Like
Mhm.
Yes.
the hard working thing makes up for the lack of talent all the
Mhm.
time. But she was that person,
Mhm.
and she went to school to get her degree in dance. And she realized I feel like I'm going to disparage people who are getting a degree in dance right now, and that is not what I'm doing. Like, God bless you. Like, go do that thing. Have a plan. Like, have a plan.
Yeah.
And work your butt off.
Yeah.
But for her personal story, she was like, I don't feel like I'm getting anything out of this.
Yeah.
And for the thing that I want to do,
Mhm.
I don't need a dance degree.
Right.
So why would I spend all of this money, put all this hardship onto my parents who are helping me get through school?
Mhm.
She made a pretty grown-up decision at a very young age,
Yeah.
and cut her losses and left that school. Now, she did end up going back to school for something that she felt like she would like doing. So she went back for marketing and PR.
Right.
But she took an accounting of what her life was at the moment and made a very difficult decision.
Mm.
She had made some great friends. She had made, all those other sort of like intrinsic things that college teaches you when you live on your own at a young
Yeah.
age, right? Those are good things, but
Yeah.
some of them can be valuable. That is an example of somebody, again, who took an accounting and cut her losses and left school.
Mm.
And it did well for her
Yeah.
because she left school and wasn't in debt. She wasn't, in a place to where she just had to go and like get a job very quickly. And I know everybody's situation is different.
Sure.
She was fortunate to have a parent that she could go and live with when she came home.
Mhm.
But yeah, and so just a very different scenario in college,
Yeah.
very different from mine. So we've talked about the person in school, we've talked about the person out of school, and then the person going to school, the encouragement would be is that no, you don't have to have a college degree.
Mhm.
If you're dead set on like working for NASA or working for SpaceX or like being a lawyer or being a doctor, or I'm sure there's other things out there that require that. Guess what? College is in your future.
Probably a
and
good call.
Mhm.
you know what I mean? Like, I don't
Yeah.
know. Yeah. I don't know where you could go and be a doctor without a degree and not be illegal. Right.
Mhm.
Right.
So if you're doing something like that, well, then common sense would say, yep, you're going to have college and get prepared,
Mm.
and bust it and work hard to make it worth it.
Mhm.
But I have so many friends who don't have college degrees, or they went to trade school, which I'm so happy to see trade schools
Yes.
getting popular again.
Agreed.
And also, I am so happy that like these kids who are going to trade school are coming out and they're making like six figures and they're like starting their own businesses and making even more than that. Like, I'm so like, that is encouraging to me because that is going to encourage the next generation that, hey, if I don't feel like college is right for me, there is literally another path, regardless of what culture might tell you.
I do want to talk a little bit about hiring and then your own experience of soft versus hard
Ooh,
skills.
that's good. Yeah.
I think this is something that is so hard to quantify sometimes, and it's so hard. You keep talking about an assessment that it sounds like you do at your job, which we do one as well. So talk a little bit about when you do hire, which maybe in past jobs you did more. What were some of the soft skills that you were looking for versus hard skills, and what were the differences?
Yeah. Well, and two, like what even are hard skills versus soft skills?
Sure.
Like,
That's
Yeah, I mean, I think we know what the real definition of hard skills versus soft skills is, but in the way that you're asking it, I feel like frankly, what a lot of people would put in the soft skills bucket, uh, is something it's not like you're born with that thing. It's
Mm.
something that has to be taught and crafted.
Yeah.
It's like, listen, we're going through an exercise now where, I'm really leaning into my directors to be directors
Mm.
and my managers to be managers.
Yes.
Because oftentimes they get treated like they're not. And that can happen because of micromanaging. That can happen for all kinds of really unhealthy reasons within an organization.
Mm.
And so it's learning for me to figure out how to manage them well so that they're successful in their own micro business, which at the end of the day makes my life a lot easier.
Yeah.
Sure.
Like
Yeah.
I didn't hire a director of events so that I could run events.
Mhm.
I hired a director of events so that they could
They
run
could
events.
run it. Yeah.
So what am I doing? Like,
Mhm.
am I trying to step in and run that business?
Mm.
Well, if I am, or if I feel like I have to, I've hired incorrectly.
Yep.
Mm.
And that's a me problem, not a them problem. I put them on the wrong seat of the bus.
Yeah.
And maybe the wrong bus in general, right?
Maybe.
That happens. So
Mhm.
I'm getting better at that. I think that there are personality traits. So like I'm somebody who's had to learn how to put on a face when I need to put on a face in terms of like energy, in terms of
Yeah.
being perceived as a people person, being perceived as somebody who like is gregarious and wants to be around people. And I love people, but at the end of the day, I do not get energy from
Yeah.
that.
Mm.
I come home and like melt into the couch. Like I want to put my headphones on. I want to go to the gym. I want to come home. I want to eat dinner. I want to sit with my wife and I want to go to bed.
Yep.
Like I do not want to go to a party. I don't want to go out for drinks afterwards. I don't want to do any of that. Like I know that I am not that person.
Yeah.
Mm.
Like I can, Justin, we met doing theater. That
Mhm.
was so far outside of my comfort zone. I don't even know. I cannot put into words how far outside of my comfort zone that is for me.
Mm.
Like I am the guy who was doing church productions and I was behind the scenes wearing headphones, like running the curtain.
Yeah.
Like you couldn't pay me an amount of money to go out and do anything on stage,
Wow.
much less like wear a costume, sing, remember lines, like
Makeup.
wear a wig, like all of these other things. And I like had to push myself to do that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of valuable things. Again, that's just another part of my life that
Mhm.
Yeah.
has allowed me to do what I do now, like even just getting up and speaking in front of people.
Yeah.
So support your local arts. But so there are those personality traits that exist where you can tell people are just like the life of the party and all of that stuff. But that's not a soft skill.
Mm.
Mm.
Like that's typically not something that person's worked on.
Mm.
But I do think that there are soft skills and that people generally, I think just as a society, we think that it just comes naturally to people
Mhm.
and not from what I've seen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good point.
Or they're saying they haven't worked on something and it comes naturally to them and they're lying.
Mm. Yeah.
So, I don't know that to me, there's definitely a blurred line between hard skills and soft skills.
Mhm.
Again, I know that there are definitions for these two things, so I don't want to like conflate the two.
Sure.
But my point is that you do have to work on and develop both of those things.
Yeah.
good.
And it's like treat them both like they are hard skills. Like
Wow.
you need to
Good.
like
That's a great point.
yeah. That's how I look at it. Like again, I work on that with my managers and directors all the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah.
Like it's all soft skill stuff. We treat it like hard skill.
If you could
That's so
like,
good.
and again, I know it depends on industry. There's so many variables, so many factors,
Mhm.
but what do you feel are like just a couple, or if there's one that comes to mind, like one of the best qualities that someone can bring into a job, like across industries, across all these things, what's some of like, I don't know, again, like whether that's just a positive attitude, energy, like,
Mhm.
Two things.
okay.
Three things.
Oh, all right.
actually.
Whoa.
I'll try not to go over three.
Buckle up.
The two things that came to mind first were adaptability and critical thought.
That's good.
We are devoid of, I'm like banging on our culture right now for like the past hour. I've been banging on culture, but I'm so fired up about it. Like I can't let it go.
Yeah.
We are devoid of critical thought.
Mm.
If I find somebody in an interview that is a deep critical thinker, that person can almost do anything.
Wow.
Almost do anything.
Wow.
Because critical thought is it is seemingly like a superpower.
Yeah.
Because that is somebody who can take something, you show them one time, they soak it in, and they can take that thing and extrapolate that over other subject matters.
Yep.
And it's so interesting to see people who are filled with critical thought, which I do think we talked about curiosity, comes with curiosity, comes about wanting to be better, wanting to do better. But critical thinking is like, to me, that is gold.
Wow.
I find somebody who is critical in their thought, like I want that person all day, every day. Adaptability, especially when you're hiring like senior people, not like old people. I mean like senior management, whatever. People who are not rigid.
Yeah.
People, I mean, like, we're still in startup phase, but I would say sometimes we don't act like we're in startup phase. And even if you're not in startup phase, frankly, like having like a high velocity culture that is not afraid of making mistakes. I was listening to Jeff Bezos on a podcast, and he was talking about one-way doors and two-way doors. And I thought that was very insightful because I've never really figured out how to articulate how I want my managers to manage. And it's really helped me manage them better because it's giving them the authority to make mistakes, but it's also giving them the authority to run their business the way that they see fit. And the only time that I really need to step in or I want to be looped in is when you're potentially making a decision that could critically alter the strategy of what it is we want to do or hurt the organization.
Yes.
Other than that, go and do the thing that you were hired to do. And by the way, if I've hired you, you're probably somebody who is thinking all the way through like the thing that you're about to make a decision on. So, but adaptability is a big one. I feel like a lot of times you get people who have come in and they've got long resumes and they've got ways that they like to do things and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of learning that can happen for me and for our team that those people bring to the table, which is great. But at the end of the day, we're always like, we are sort of taking the sort of the machining and manufacturing approach, which is like, now they use it for other things, but like the Six Sigma approach, which is, you're constantly trying to eliminate waste. You're constantly trying to create an environment that is constantly trying to eliminate waste. So it's like this continuous improvement methodology, and you're constantly looking for ways to eliminate waste. And oftentimes you're the leader and you're the only one doing that.
Yeah.
Like nobody else is thinking about it like that. And if you can create an environment that allows people the freedom to think like that, suddenly you realize you don't have to do that anymore. Everybody around you is going to do that for you, and they're going to do it better than you because they're in the weeds doing it.
Yes.
And you're not. You don't have the capability of being able to think through it the way that they think through it because that's the thing they do every single day. And so if you can just create the environment as a manager, they'll start to do it on their own because as it turns out, most people want purpose when they're at work. And the more that you can give them some of that authority, the more they'll just take it and run with it and do a really good job at it. So adaptability, critical thought, and then the thing that should have been first, and it wasn't, was humility. We need more leaders in this country that are humble.
That's good.
Like that, and this is not a new revelation. I'm fully aware of that, but that doesn't mean we don't need it.
Right.
Yeah.
We need leaders in organizations that are humble. We need political leaders that are humble.
Yes.
We need church leaders that are humble.
Yes.
Like everybody needs a little slice of humble pie in their life. And if you're a leader of an organization or a leader of anything, especially, humility is another thing that's a superpower.
That's
It'll make you a
awesome.
better leader. So those are the three things that I would say that I look for is
Man.
humility, adaptability, and critical thought.
That is so good. If you could talk to a younger version of yourself
Oh.
and give advice to a younger version of yourself, in going through and processing through and gaining all this insight and all this wisdom from various, people and industries and things like that, what would that advice be? Like, what is the advice that you would give the younger Garrett?
I was never good at doing the thing that was in front of me.
Mm.
And I think that there is a discipline in that, and again, I'm not saying anything that's new. I'm just saying a thing that resonated with me. Like there's plenty of books and plenty of podcasts and plenty of really well thought out people who have said the thing like, make your bed in the morning, right? And it isn't about making your bed, right? It doesn't matter whether you make your bed or not, but it's the mindset. And so I think that there is a lesson in doing the thing that's in front of you, regardless of how menial it is. And I think this does go back to the practice makes permanent. It is good for you to be doing those menial tasks or the things that you think are menial, right? It's whether they're menial or not, doesn't matter. You may just belittle them. And I wasn't good at doing that when I was younger. I was lazy. I wasn't thinking about things the way that I should have been thinking about them. And I think that whether he would have or not, I don't know, like maybe the Lord would have progressed me quicker. Right. Like there's a lot of I was a very hard-headed person. That's not like a prosperity gospel or anything like that. I'm just saying like there's a lot of lessons that we're constantly learning every day.
Right.
And I guess like one of the things that I would have said to myself back then is like, do the thing that's in front of you. Like, is that a math assignment because you're in 10th grade and you have math homework that you need to be doing? You know what's not more important than that? Playing a video game. Right. You know what's not more important than that? Going outside and playing. Like you're going to go do all that stuff. But you need to do the thing that's required of you and do the thing that's in front of you and do it well. And that is that's a skill and that's a mindset. And that is a good habit for somebody of every single age to learn and to do is to do the thing that's in front of you. Oftentimes I find I'm a planner. I'm a budgeter. I'm like, I'm all the annoying things. And you can create stress out of that stuff, right? By thinking, and it's good to plan. Like it's good to be budgeted. It's good to live on a budget. It's good. All that stuff's good, right? Like people just make it, their little idols. And, but you get to a point to where you're getting so far out ahead of you and so far planned and so strategic about, how your life's going to work out and where you're going to live and the house and all of these other things that we get stressed out about. And then we're not doing the things that are right in front of us that are important for so many ways that we are not smart enough to see. Yeah. And I was always outsmarting, and I never thought about it like this, but this was my person. This was my attitude. I'm smarter than where I'm at currently in life. And so I don't need to do this thing. I'm going to go contrive some other thing and I'm going to go do that instead. And that is me hitting my head into a brick wall over and over and over again and being depressed and being upset and being like ungrateful and being all of these things. And I feel like if I was being excellent at the things that were in front of me, that would have created a better result. I think maybe not ultimately, but it would have created a better result in those moments. And it creates different opportunities and all kinds of things that it instills in you. But I think that that's a very simple thing that we just don't do. And again, I'll end the podcast where I started, which is talking about culture.
No, but Garrett, we could talk to you all day, and I would love to talk to you more about culture and what you've seen, like when you're hiring someone in their 40s versus someone in their 20s, like differences. I really would love to pick your mind about stuff like that, and so we will have to create a whole nother podcast for that one. But
The Hinton musings.
right. So the
boy.
question that we do ask everybody who is on our podcast is using the name of our podcast, and which was our word for last year, but what does it mean to you to intentionally thrive?
I finally am in a place now to where I can realize what the Lord is knitting together, and part of that is my spiritual journey just becoming more mature,
Wow.
which I'm grateful for, and I'm grateful in the time that the Lord showed up. His timing is perfect as usual, and so it's allowing me to reflect on all of the things in my past and then begin to apply them. And I'm not applying them perfectly or anything like that, but I am starting to apply them, and I'm trying to be humble about those things that I've missed. And like we just talked about, like doing the thing that's in front of you. There's a lot of that stuff in my life right now, and I'm trying to be that person. Like I'm trying to apply those specific things. It's like, okay, bonehead, like the Lord is kind and gracious, and Lord willing, he will continue to be that in my life to me personally, because I need a lot of that. But what am I doing to apply those things that he is showing me? Am I just having a realization and I'm like, oh, that's great. Thanks. I'm so happy I know that now. Like it's giving me this peace and comfort. Like, no, I am here to work. Like that's the bottom line. And like, right, people, we talk about retirement and all these other things. I'm like, I don't know what I would do in retirement. I'd have to go volunteer somewhere.
We say the
So
same.
I am trying to take those things, those realizations that he's given me, like doing the thing that's in front of you. Because I didn't have a life of that. I didn't have like the first 20 or frankly, maybe even 30 years of my life. I wasn't doing that. And so I have the opportunity now to go back and start doing those things. And that's a gift. Like, I don't feel like everybody gets an opportunity like that. And it's not something I've done on my own. It's not something I've figured out because I'm so smart. Like, it's something that it has been given to me. It's a realization. And I'm like, okay, now I have an opportunity. Like now I can go back and start applying these things to myself, and being, like you guys are saying, more intentional about these things. And I think as a byproduct, the thriving comes from that.
Yeah.